Success comes from persistence. Persistence is what allows someone to continue with something, even though it's difficult or there's opposition from other people. Why is persistence important for success? Challenges are inevitable on your journey to success. Persistence means that you don't give up when things get difficult, and persistence enables you to push through to achieve success. Everyone knows the inventor of the light bulb, Thomas Edison. But do you know who developed the first viable blue light LED, which led to the white light LED that is now used in lighting applications today? The man is Shuji Nakamura, and his work in developing the blue light LED is a case study in persistence. Before Nakamura developed the blue light LED, many believed that the creation of the blue light LED was impossible. To put things into perspective and to show you how difficult, I will first tell you about the science and the history behind LEDs. LEDs, or light-emitting diodes, are semiconductors that emit light when a current flows through it. A semiconductor is a material that has electrical conductivity that falls between a conductor, such as copper, and an insulator, such as glass. The most common semiconducting materials are crystals. Depending on the material of which the crystal is made, the conducting properties can be altered in useful ways, including light emission. Light is produced in LEDs when current is passed through, and the electrons move from the N-type material to the P-type material. N-type, or negative material, has an excess of electrons, and P-type, or positive materials, has missing electrons, or holes. And when electricity is applied, the electrons jump from the N-type region to the P-type region to fill those holes. The space between these two regions is called the energy band gap. When the electrons move, they release energy in the form of light. The size of the gap determines the amount of energy required for the electrons to make that jump. The energy of the photon determines the type of light released. Invisible infrared light is low energy, and invisible ultraviolet light is high energy. Visible light sits in between infrared and ultraviolet on the light spectrum, and the color of the visible light is determined by the specific levels of energy. All this happens at the subatomic level, hence the challenge for those trying to create the right materials for the right frequency to get the right color of light. LEDs have been around for a long time, but it wasn't until the arrival of the blue light LED that LED technology was available for lighting. Electroluminescence was discovered in 1907. This is where a material emits light in response to the passage of an electric current. The first LED was invented in 1927, but it was of no practical use due to its inefficiency in producing visible light. It wasn't for another 35 years until the first viable light LED was created in 1962. It emitted a red-colored light, but it was very dim and was costly to make. Further research and development by various corporations increased the light output and reduced production costs, and in 1968, the red light LED became practical and commercially viable for consumer applications such as instrument indicators and calculator displays. The green LED was created in 1970s, and when combined with red, was able to produce yellow light. Further developments in the 1980s led to the increase in the brightness, which made it possible for the availability of ultra-bright red, green, and yellow LEDs. Despite over 50 years of LED development, it was still not possible to use LEDs for lighting, as LEDs did not produce white light. Blue light was needed to combine with red and green to produce white light. Although the blue light LED was initially discovered in 1972, it did not produce the brightness needed for lighting applications due to the technical challenges. At the time, many considered blue light LEDs too difficult to create. Then, in 1993, Shuji Nakamura revealed the first ultra-bright blue light LED to the world, and this changed everything. LED for lighting became commercially available in 2002, and from 2019, LEDs became the light of choice, replacing incandescent, halogen, and fluorescent lighting. Shuji Nakamura and the blue light LED. In 1993, a researcher named Shuji Nakamura made the necessary breakthroughs to produce a blue light LED bright enough to be used for lighting. His is a story of persistence in the face of immense challenges. The industry had tried and didn't believe it was possible. The company he worked for didn't believe it was possible. His peers didn't believe it was possible. To create a blue light LED, Nakamura needed to overcome 3 barriers: the manufacture of a high quality crystal, the material needed for the blue light LED, the creation of the p-type of that material in order for the LED to function, and for the LED to have sufficient light power output to be practical. Between 1988 and 1993, Nakamura achieved the 3 significant breakthroughs that led to the creation of the first practical blue light LED. The crystal used for LEDs were manufactured in labs. Crystals needed to have minimal defects at an atomic level, as defects disrupted the electron flow, which resulted in heat radiation instead of light. At the time, no one could produce the crystals of sufficient quality needed for blue light LEDs. Nakamura traveled from Japan to the United States, to the University of Florida, as a visiting research associate to learn how to use a new crystal manufacturing method called metal organic chemical vapor deposition, or MOCVD. Working in the lab, Nakamura faced many challenges. Firstly, he wasn't allowed to use the working MOCVD, so he had to spend the first 10 months assembling a new system from scratch. Secondly, the researchers looked down upon him as they all had their PhDs and Nakamura did not. They treated him like a lowly technician, and this experience created a strong desire in Nakamura to obtain his PhD. After 12 months, he returned to Japan with an intimate knowledge of how an MOCVD reactor worked and a dream to get a PhD. In Japan, at that time, it was possible to obtain a PhD degree by publishing 5 scientific papers. Now, there were 2 options of crystal for the blue light LED: zinc selenide and gallium nitride. Both were semiconductors with theoretical band gaps in the blue light range. However, zinc selenide was the more promising option, as when grown, had less than 1,000 defects per square centimetre. Gallium nitride had been abandoned by almost everyone because it was more difficult to create and had over 10 billion defects per square centimetre. Nakamura decided to pursue gallium nitride as he was confident that he could publish many papers on this and earn his PhD. Nakamura reasoned that low interest in gallium nitride meant less competition, and this meant he had a greater chance of his research papers being accepted for publication. Interestingly, he had no confidence that he could actually invent the blue light LED. His objective at that time was to get the PhD. So for 6 months, Nakamura tried to grow a gallium nitride crystal using his new MOCVD reactor without success. The reactor was designed for gallium arsenide and was not able to produce gallium nitride. Given the substantial investment in the reactor, he realized that this was a big problem, so he decided to modify the reactor so it could produce gallium nitride crystal. His 10 months of building an MOCVD reactor from scratch suddenly proved to be invaluable. Nakamura's daily routine was to arrive at the lab at 7 a.m. and to modify the reactor until 1 p.m. Then in the afternoon, he would perform a couple of growths and analyze the results until 7 p.m. He would then go home and return the next day at 7 a.m. to repeat the process. He did this every single day, including weekends, for 18 months, only taking time off for New Year's Day. Management had changed at Nishia, and Nakamura was ordered to stop researching the blue light LED due to costs. But having invested so much time and personal effort, Nakamura ignored these demands by Nishia management and continued to experiment. In 1990, whilst going through this process, he invented a new MOCVD design that he called the two-flow MOCVD. Using this, he was able to create a very uniform and high-quality gallium nitride crystal that had electron mobility that was 4 times higher than any other grown in a lab. He now had the highest quality gallium nitride crystal ever made. The second barrier to overcome was to create p-type gallium nitride. Scientists could create n-type gallium nitride, but the p-type had been elusive for 20 years. A method to create p-type existed. This involved exposing individual crystals to a low-energy electron beam. Unfortunately, this was not scalable. Only small amounts could be created at high cost. In addition to this, why this actually created p-type gallium nitride was not known. In 1992, Nakamura discovered that hydrogen was the reason p-type gallium nitride was so difficult to produce. For MOCVD growth of gallium nitride, ammonia is used as the nitrogen source. Ammonia is made up of nitrogen and hydrogen atoms. The process introduced a hydrogen atom to the crystal, filling up the space that would allow it to act as an acceptor, therefore preventing it from being a p-type with a hole to accept electrons. Nakamura believed that it was just energy needed to release the hydrogen. So instead of using an electron beam, Nakamura used a process called annealing, which applied energy in the form of heat. He heated the gallium nitride crystal to 400 degrees Celsius, which caused the hydrogen to diffuse out of the crystal, enabling it to act as an acceptor, and therefore create p-type gallium nitride. The added advantage of the thermal annealing method was that it was quick and could be used on any sized crystal. This was better than the electron beam method and made it suitable for mass production of p-type gallium nitride. With a reliable and simple method of making p-type crystal, Nakamura had all the materials necessary to create a prototype blue light LED. In 1992, he presented the prototype blue light LED at an industry workshop and received a standing ovation. But despite his prototype being the best to date, it still had a blue-violet color and was extremely inefficient, with the light output power of 42 microwatt, well below the 1000 microwatt threshold needed for practical use. This was the final hurdle to overcome. To increase the power, the solution was to increase the efficiency of electrons, and the way to do this was to introduce an active layer which encouraged more electrons to jump from the N-type to the P-type crystal. This design with an active layer, called a double heterostructure LED, existed, but the challenge was again the material. The best material for the active layer was known to be indium gallium nitride, as it shrunk the band gap to produce the active layer and also allowed for the tuning of the color of the light by adjusting the amount of indium in the crystal. Creating indium gallium nitride was more difficult than creating p-type crystal. Indium has high vapor pressure, so the typical growth temperature of the gallium nitride meant indium would boil off the surface and not incorporate into the crystal. Because Nakamura was able to modify his MOCVD reactor, he was able to force indium into the gallium nitride in precisely controlled production process to create indium gallium nitride. Now, once this was achieved, the electron flowed well, a little too well, and he needed to spend another couple of months to achieve the correct balance. He solved the problem with another crystal, aluminium gallium nitride, and this had a larger band gap and effectively trapped the electrons to cross exactly where it was needed. These improvements meant that Nakamura was able to create the first commercially available blue light LED that produced 1,500 microwatts of power in 1994. Because of the blue light LED, Nakamura went on to create the white light LED, and then the blue laser diode, which is used for Blu-ray discs and HD DVD. Nakamura was recognized with many awards, and in 2014 received the Nobel Prize for Physics. Persistence is one of the most important ingredients of success. Shuji Nakamura, the inventor of the blue light LED, displayed this throughout his career. He overcame social, technical, and corporate challenges to achieve what many believed to be impossible to achieve. His persistence helped change the way we live in this world.